Hello, fellow streamers. Welcome to another episode of the Matchup Maximizer podcast presented by Keeping Carlson, where this week I, Elan Dubrovsky, will take a look at next week's NHL schedule to try to pinpoint which players and teams you should be targeting to get the edge in your head-to-head matchups. This is going to be a tricky one. Jeremy alluded to when he did this show last week that the schedule for this week of March 25th to March 31st stinks. It's terrible. This is like the nightmare for a lot of streamers where you're gonna have days where you're benching people. I hate it. Like, I don't know why the NHL has to do this to us, but here we are. We'll take a look at if there's anything you can do to try to maximize your chances this week as we look at the schedule. Of course, for a lot of people, if you're playing in the Keeping Carlson Ultimate Patron Fantasy League, this is the semifinals, the second last week of the season, a must-win week for most people. So you're going to have to do what you need to do, which might mean dropping someone really good. So I'll tell you the schedule. It's just basically Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, super busy, especially Thursday and Saturday, and then almost nobody playing on the Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. 2 games on Monday, Wednesday, 1 game each on Friday and Sunday. So yeah, there's going to be forwards most likely that you're only not even playing all week, because there's so many teams that just play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So if you have a forward that's like a bottom of your roster kind of forward, you're probably benching that person on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So it's like, why even have that person? Especially if you have an open goalie spot, an open D spot, you're going to need to make that tough call. Even though you may want to use that forward in the finals, you might want to take a look at next week's schedule when deciding between 2 forwards to drop. But it's going to be a tough one, okay? But I guess makes it fun because we're all on the same level here. And so here is where you really have to figure out what the right strategy is. For example, I'll just dive into this here. I in my couple team where I'm in the consolation playoffs, unfortunately, didn't work out for me with the head-to-head luck this year. But I'm winning my matchup currently, so I'm going to be making it to the semifinals. I'm going to try to lock in that 7th place finish best I can do. And I only had one goalie, Charlie Lindgren, so I figured I'm going to try to find a goalie that's going to play at least 2 times next week. We got some news that the Arizona Coyotes have announced they're alternating their goalies. That's it. So it's going to be Ingram on Sunday and then Vejmelka coming in on Tuesday, which would then mean Ingram's Thursday, and then Vejmelka Saturday. And Vejmelka's actually on a bit of a run right now. Karel Vejmelka of the Arizona Coyotes. Sorry, I just kind of dove right in there. So I figured, okay, let me just grab Vejmelka. I'll get the Thursday, Saturday. That covers a couple goalie starts. So you're going to want to take a look potentially if you're like me and you're full on your skaters, but you don't have your goalie spots filled. I think that's the first place to look. And normally I talk about forwards and defensemen normally on this show, but here I think you really want to just take a look at, again, if you're so full on those busy days, but if you have a day or two where you're likely aren't going to be able to fill both of your goalie spots with goalies that are actually playing, maybe take a look now and see if you could jump in and try to predict, the starts. Obviously, not all the teams announce exactly what they're going to do, but there are a lot of teams that seem to be alternating their goalies lately. You could think of the Seattle Kraken, for example, seem to be alternating. So they have games against Anaheim and Anaheim both on Tuesday and Thursday. So those could potentially be good games to target. You could always wait until the Tuesday game is announced to be sure. Let's say if it's Decord that plays on the Tuesday, then that means it's very likely that Decord will also play on the Saturday. So you can get 2 games, kind of what I did for Vejmelka there. Some other teams that tend to alternate their goalies, like the Ducks, if you want to get, and also, those 2 games against the Kraken aren't too bad for Anaheim. All things considered, it could be a lot scarier. Boston, of course, those guys usually aren't available. Carolina seems to be alternating Anderson and Kochikov. Columbus with Merzlikins and Tarasov. So you may be able to predict goalie starts, but obviously you never know with goalies, but that's a way to play. As far as the schedules themselves, so most teams just play Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. There are a few teams with off day games. There's only 2 teams that have 2 light day games. Those are Buffalo, who play Wednesday, Friday, and then Saturday, and then Vancouver, who play Monday, Thursday, Sunday. So I guess on one hand, I'm like, I'd rather just get the early game because then you could always reassess. But then you have to wait all the way until Sunday to get that second off day game, or you go for Buffalo and you get those 2 games in the middle. But let's take a look at which players you may want to target on those 2 teams as clearly the teams where you're going to be able to stream players in and get at least a couple of games, which is better than nothing, of course. Starting on Buffalo, They're coming off a game where they just got totally spanked by the Oilers, so it's likely that the lines will change again. We were seeing for a stretch like Zemgus Girgensons on a line with Tage Thompson, which made him a somewhat interesting streamer. He barely played in that game against the Oilers. I'd expect he won't be on such a great line, so it's really hard to predict. I could tell you like the players that aren't rostered too highly that have been doing well lately on Buffalo. Players that jump out would be like JJ Peterka, who at least in that last game was playing on a line with Thompson and Tuck. We'll see if that lasts. Peterka had 2 goals in that 8-3 loss to Edmonton and 5 shots. So he's had stretches before in the season where he's been decent, and also stretches, of course, where he's been very cold, but that's why we're talking about streamer level players. So I think Peterka jumps out as the clear top guy for now, barring future line combinations that you'd maybe want to jump on over on Buffalo. And aside from that, maybe like a Jordan Greenway, who seems to be getting playing time with Cousins. He's getting decent deployment. He doesn't have a point in his last couple games, but he's, I don't know, taking a couple shots. He had 4 blocks in that last game against Edmonton, so at least he helped you a little bit there. Honestly, like it's pretty tough if you're not going to be able to get. Oh, I do like Bowen Byram. If you can get him, he's been on the top power play. Maybe he's kind of slowed down after his hot start with his new team. So perhaps if he's been dropped now, would be a great time to jump on Bowen Byram. But barring Byron being available, you're not going to be able to stream in like a Thompson or a Tuck or a Cousins or even a Skinner, even though he was cold, not a Dahlin. So of the remaining players, I guess Peterka jumps out, and really no one else. Then you could wait for line, see if Girgensons gets on the top line again. I guess you can go for him, but yeah, like unlikely. I guess you could also consider Buffalo. They're going to have that back-to-back on Friday and Saturday, so maybe you can grab. But who even knows who the backup will be? Will it be Levi? Will it be Eric Comrie? So you probably don't want to jump ahead. And also that Saturday game is against Toronto. So yeah, I guess Peterka just jumps out as your clear streamer from the Sabres, and maybe it's going to be your streamer of the week if you're not looking at goalies or defensemen. Over on Vancouver, they've also been running some different lines. It's really hard to know what they're going to stick with. I'm recording this on Saturday night at around 10:50-ish, and we're done one period in this game of the Canucks versus the Flames. I could tell you the lines they've been rolling so far early in this game. Miller, Besser, and Pius Suter, and then Pettersson with Connor Garland and Nils Höglander. So there's that's always nice, at least. If you're going to do some streaming, you've got Pius Suter, you've got Connor Garland, you've got Nils Höglander, all potentially getting exposure to really good players. That could be interesting. Obviously, who knows if they're going to stick with them. Pius Suter, no points in his last 4 games, hasn't done much, even with his good deployment, but I do obviously love playing with JT Miller. Connor Garland has been better. He's actually got a 3-game point streak, so maybe he jumps out as someone that might stick in this spot with Elias Pettersson and maybe can continue to produce not too many shots on goal. He did have some 4 and 3 shot games, but also a 1-shot game that last game against Montreal. Already an assist today for the Canucks. The goal was a Höglander assisted by Pettersson and Garland. So yeah, getting to Höglander, looks like that line is looking good. So I think those are some very nice clear targets. Jump on Höglander, jump on Garland, and then hope that they'll hold their spots for the Monday game and then that Sunday game. You get 2 off-day games, pretty much the best you can do. So I think that that rounds out, right? I'll say that Pius Suter doesn't interest me much. So as far as players that you could stream in and get 2 games from, I'm looking at Höglander, Garland, and JJ Peterka. Those are your 2 off-day game players. If you're in a league with like a categories league where you're looking for some other peripheral categories, kind of hard to ignore Nikita Zadorov after his 2-goal game against Montreal, where he took 5 shots already today against Calgary. By the way, don't expect much offense from Nikita Zadorov over on Vancouver, but he already has 2 hits and 2 blocks after 1 period against Calgary. So I think Zadorov is a good bet if you need help in hits and blocks to get those 2 off-day games. But okay, with that, I mean, that's Buffalo, that's Vancouver. The other teams you can look at to get 1 single off-day game, I'll just list them all right now. You've got Anaheim, whose off-day game is all the way on Sunday. So I don't know if you're jumping on that player now, but maybe a lot of people will be jumping on Anaheim players as the week progresses. That game on Sunday is Anaheim versus Vancouver, by the way. So I'd imagine more people will jump on the Vancouver players because they're getting the Monday and the Sunday. But maybe you just get a leg up. Let's say it's a Thursday. You've decided that you want to get this extra game, you might as well get it right away. If like an Alex Killorn has been dropped, someone like that. I've talked about Anaheim a bunch of times. You could check the lines, but someone like Killorn always seems to be floating in and out of free agency, so he could be a decent ad for that last game against Vancouver. The other off day game players are, so Boston goes Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Saturday. There's a guy on Boston that I'm definitely going to ask Brian about tomorrow on the Mega Show, who's just like doing so well lately, and I hadn't heard of him. Justin Brazeau, who today versus Philly scored himself yet another goal. That brings Brazeau to 5 points in his last 3 games, 4 goals and 1 assist. And, obviously Brian will say, and it makes sense, high shooting percentage, but he did have 6, 4, and shots in 2 of those games. Only 1 shot today against Philly. But still, I don't know. So this guy's kind of interesting if you want to grab him for that Wednesday game. Boston, there's the key guys that might be available. Your Coyles, your DeBrusques, your Zakas. But, if those guys aren't available, I might be interested in a Brazeau, especially with JVR being off the top power play. The top power play today was Marchand, Pasta, Coyle, Zaka, and McAvoy. So if we're looking for a PP2 guy anyway, I've liked Morgan Geekie for a while. So maybe I'd go Geekie over Brazeau, but I could see it going either way. But also I have no idea who this person is. But all of a sudden he's starting to do well. I just grabbed him in my Dynasty League for what it's worth, my last ad of the season. Okay, so what other teams give us at least one off-day game? There's the LA Kings. They play Monday and then Thursday, Saturday. So you can get that early game against Vancouver for LA. Who are you going to add from LA for that game? Well, first of all, if Victor Arvidsson is available, if he just came back and scored a goal and had an assist in his return game against Minnesota, I would imagine that would have led to a lot of people just going and grabbing him if he was out there in free agency. But if he's still somehow out there, that seems like an obvious guy to take. If you can't get Arvidsson, I always love Phil Deneau as a streamer. Always is like a solid guy to go for. He's been pretty good lately. Has 3 points in his last couple games. We'll see what he does today as I'm recording in this game versus Tampa Bay. Couldn't hurt to take a shot on Pierre-Luc Dubois if he's out there. Dubois has obviously had this big disappointing season, but he did have a bit of a run. Pointless in that 6-0 win over Minnesota, but before that, Dubois was on a run of 1 goal and 4 assists over 3 games. So maybe he's picking things up and could help you in that one single game versus Vancouver. Also, keep an eye out on the goalie start there, right? David Riddick. So it's Cam Talbot playing today. So maybe Riddick, coming off a shutout against Minnesota, gets the game on Monday. It's against the Canucks. The Canucks can score some goals, but like I said, if you're not going to be getting skater games, you might as well go for some goalie games, and Riddick at least is coming off a hot start, so maybe he'll keep that going. The other teams that have off-day games here, you've got New Jersey that only play twice, but it's Tuesday and Friday. And Tuesday, there's 12 teams playing. There is a small chance that you might be able to fit in a Tuesday player. So that would make New Jersey like pretty appealing. If you can get just those 2 games and you drop for someone else over the weekend. The Lions in today's loss to Ottawa were Hischier, Bratt, and Meyer, and then Hughes with Haula and Alex Holtz. They lost this game, so maybe things will change. Obviously, Haula and Holtz are interesting if they're playing with Jack Hughes. You're not going to get anyone on the top power play. Those guys are rostered all over. Hughes, Bratt, Hischier, Meyer, and Luke Hughes. So yeah, you could take a look at one of those New Jersey guys. But again, especially if you can't fit the Tuesday and you're just looking at that Friday game, you might as well wait and see if you can get some updated lines. Then we've got the Ottawa Senators playing Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. Big game for Matthew Joseph today with his goal and assist. He wasn't playing on the most exciting line, playing with Kubalik and Ridley Gregg. But hey, he's had some big games in the past. A guy who looks interesting is Angus Crookshank, who's been recently called up, and he was playing online with Giroux and Stützle. So Crookshank, hasn't had the big results yet, but he did score today against New Jersey and 3 shots. Who knows if this will hold? He could be sent to the minors for all we know before the next game. But if come Wednesday you see the Ottawa lines and Crookshank is still playing with Stützle and Giroux, then that seems like a really nice stream to get that game. It's against Buffalo on Wednesday. So maybe that could be a nice streamer. Then you're obviously not going to be holding Crookshank for a Thursday, Saturday with a super busy schedule. But that's a fun name that I'd be curious to see if able to keep it up. That's really nice deployment. Then we still have a couple more teams. St. Louis goes Monday against Vegas, and then Thursday, Saturday. So you can go with a Blues player. Braden Shen is now on a hot streak after I dropped him in one of my leagues, which is kind of frustrating. But what are you going to do? Obviously, just today, Jordan Kyrou had a hat trick. That's amazing, but he's not someone that you're going to be able to get. But also, Jake Neighbors is on another one of his runs. He scored today in the win over Minnesota, 2 goals in the game before that. He's actually on a 6-game point streak, so might as well go and grab Jake Neighbors for that Monday game if he's out there and you could afford to make the move. Neighbors was playing on a line with the aforementioned Braden Shen and Rob Thomas, so not too bad. And that's left Jordan Kyrou to play on a line with Buchnevich and Brandon Saad. So I guess Brandon Saad becomes the other interesting interesting person in the top 6 that might be available that has decent exposure. Saad, 1 goal, 1 assist today. Also had 1 goal, 1 assist in his previous game. So yeah, just for that Monday, grab a Neighbors, grab a Saad. Hope it works out against Vegas. And then that does leave Vegas, who plays Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So you could grab yourself a Vegas player. Vegas is playing Columbus as I speak. The lines are Barbashev, Eichel, Marchessault. So if Barbashev is still out there, then you can grab him. He hasn't been especially exciting lately, but if you're playing with Eichel and Marchessault, then anything could happen. And then the rest of the lineup, looks pretty thin when you don't have Mark Stone there, but Chandler Stevenson is centering a line with Carrier and Mantha. So I don't know. I would definitely go Barbashev over Stevenson, even though Stevenson is slightly hotter lately. He had himself a goal in the last game versus Seattle. So those are all the off-day games available to you all throughout the week. I think at the end of the day, which is not a bad thing, maybe just the better team is going to win. Though frustratingly, it's going to also be the people who make the best sit-start decisions. You have to get a bit lucky to, I think a lot of people are going to be leaving a lot of points on their bench over this week, which would be a really frustrating way to lose, to know you built a really strong team just to have a Jordan Kyrou who gets a hat trick, but it's on your bench and you were smart enough to roster him, but then you had to sit someone, and that's why you lose. That'll be frustrating. But yeah, maybe it won't be coming down to who is the best streamer, but there are still some little things you can do. And like Jeremy said last week, and I'll definitely agree, focus on those other positions. Maybe you can fit drop a good forward that you're still just not going to fit in to get a couple goalie games, get a defense game, make sure you're fill up on those other positions so that you get as many games possible. A guy that's not playing for you all week isn't helping you, and you might want to hold them for the following week, but it'll be a bummer to do that just for you not to even make it past the semifinals to your finals. If you want to take a look at that following week, I'll just mention really quickly the best schedules by far are Colorado, Rangers, and Washington, with 4 light day games. So if you're deciding on people to drop, maybe you hold on to your Avalanche, your Rangers, and your Washington Capitals. But we'll be back next Saturday night, Sunday morning, to drop another matchup maximizer to dive more deeply into that next week. We got to get through next week first before we can look at the week of April 1st to April 7th. So good luck, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this episode, got something valuable. Chat with me in the Matchup Maximizer channel on the Keeping Karlsson Discord if you're a patron. I'd love to know who you end up going for. And yeah, hopefully you have been enjoying the content on the Keeping Karlsson podcast feed. Another couple great Short Shifts episodes. And Brian and I will be back with a mega episode in 24 hours, less than that. So make sure you're subscribed to Keeping Karlsson. Good luck with your streaming. Go make the finals. See ya.